There will be a shared recording in case you come in late, or if you can't follow along with all the information. So please relax, take in as much as you can, and know that there will be a recording of the event that will be sent afterwards. We'd ask everyone to please mute themselves and continue to put your name, organization, and location in the chat, as we're very happy to have all of you with us today. My name is Rosemary Barbaret. I'm a new member at large of the NGO CSW Executive Committee. I've been organizing my own NGO CSW parallel events since 2009. I represent two NGOs at the UN, the International Sociological Association, and Criminologists Without Borders. I'm a feminist criminologist and a professor at a large public university in New York. I'd like to acknowledge today the help of two EC members who can't be with us because of health issues, Jillian D'Souza Nazareth and Suleka Frank. One of the first things I realized upon joining the EC is how much we do with relatively little. I am sure this is the situation for many of you attending today. And like many of you, we care for others and we try to practice self-care. We all believe in what we do and we like doing it together, despite the many challenges. Every year, the EC tries to incorporate feedback from previous CSWs. We have an awful lot of news for you today. The Open Forum is our first informational event, to be followed by many others. So the agenda for today is first, we'll have updates from the CSW Bureau and from UN Women. Interspersed, I'll give an overview of the CSW. Then we'll have an overview of the NGO CSW Forum and the reasons to attend, very important. After that, we'll talk about the NGO CSW Forum virtual portal, which is new this year. We'll have some input from the Advocacy and Advocacy Research Group. We'll talk about our youth leaders and young professionals, and then we want to leave a lot of time for Q&A. I remember when I was in the audience, I always had lots of questions. I also had a fair amount of complaints about how things were run, which is why I'm now on the EC. I'm on the hot seat, and as I said, we are largely volunteers, but we work to get the more of you involved, the better. And we try to be responsive to your needs. So use the chat and also the Q&A to participate and to tell us how you plan to be involved this year. We'll now have a short introductory poll asking you to share some information with us.
Okay, you should all see the poll.
We do.
Make sure to scroll down to the bottom for the second question as well. The first question is, where are you working? Global processes, regional, national, local, or other? Then the second question is, how many times have you attended CSW or the CSW Forum?
So this poll is just to get some information about the people attending and to share it with all of us. Today's Open Forum is meant for everyone around the globe, and it's meant for people who've participated for a long time in the CSW and in the NGO CSW Forum, as well as first-timers.
All right, looks like most people have submitted their answers. We're still getting a little bit more. I'll give it 30 more seconds. All right. Okay, so you should all see the results now. So we have most participants are working in global processes at 58%. And most, at 43%, have participated in a CSW or NGO CSW Forum 2 to 4 times. 13% have participated more than 10 times, and 30% have participated or have not participated, and this is going to be their first time. So that's really exciting. Welcome to all the new people. Yeah, okay, back to you, Rosemary.
Thank you, Devin. Devin is our behind the scenes and in front of the scenes manager. And we're very glad to have her. I'd now like to introduce the NGO CSW co-chairs. They will give you a welcome to the forum, Pamela Morgan and Ivy Cook. You have the floor.
Thank you, Rosemary. So we have so much content, such rich content coming up, so I don't want to take too much of that time. I just wanted to give a very warm welcome, and so happy to see all of you here and reading the chats, and I'll also try and engage there as much as possible, but I'll pass it on to Pamela.
Thank you, Rosemary, and thank you, Ivy. Greetings, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Along with my co-chair, Ivy, I'm pleased to welcome you to the NGO CSW68 Open Forum. We consider this to be a primer for CSW, something like CSW 68 101. The Open Forum promises to be dynamic, informative, and exciting. Today, you'll hear from our team about the multiple aspects of the forum. There will be loads of information given, so please have a pen and paper at hand because you'll probably want to take notes. We want to give special thanks to our support team of Devin, Annabelle, Carla, and Rachel for helping us to pull all of this together. And before we move into the agenda, I have a commercial message. We'd like to remind you about the Secretary General's Unite campaign that supports the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence that spans from November 25th, which is the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, to December 10th, which is Human Rights Day. We encourage you to take action and make some noise during the 16 days of action campaign. We are now pleased to have with us today Maris Berbergs, Third Secretary of the Mission of Latvia to the UN, our liaison with the CSW Bureau. He's one of the people who helps NGO CSW New York to understand the interworkings of the Bureau. Maris will now give us a perspective of CSW 68 and an update from the perspective of the CSW Bureau. Maris, the mic is yours.
Thank you very much. I hope you all hear me well. I am Maris. I am a diplomat here in New York. I work for the Mission of Latvia, and I'm vice chair of the Bureau, CSW Bureau. And the Bureau has started its work to prepare the next session, which will happen in March next year. We are meeting more and more frequently as the session is coming closer. In the Bureau, this team is, we are the main organizers from the member state parts of the United Nations, and we are assisted with the great team of UN Women so that the session is successful. It has been successful for many years thanks to this good cooperation that we have. And for this upcoming session, the Bureau consists of 5 member states. There is Latvia as one of the vice chairs, then there are Philippines, Argentina, Netherlands, and Cabo Verde as well. It is a great team. So far, we work together very well. We can agree on completely everything. We have very smooth conversations. We seem to agree on everything. I can share those insights because there indeed are things to be agreed upon. We of course have our rules of procedure, how the session is organized, but there is always some decisions that are made by the Bureau. One of those things that are usually decided by the Bureau is also whether to have a focus area of the during the session. Of course, the session has its priority theme, which will be addressing poverty. But within the session, there is the possibility that the Bureau sees that there is some area that we should also shine a light on. So that is one of the things that is up to the Bureau to decide. And this Bureau has decided that indeed we will have an expert panel on a emerging issue or a priority theme. What not priority theme, but a focus area. What it exactly will be, we are still considering. We are in consultations with member states. What is something that is not in the program of the session, but that is something that we would like to be discussed. We are also in consultations with member states regarding review theme. As you might know, every session has an event where we look at a priority theme that was priority some years ago, and we look at the progress that has been made in those few years since the matter was addressed. So we are also in process of organizing the review theme event. Also high on the Bureau's agenda this year, similarly as in previous years, is the NGO participation. As you very well know, and you have experienced it yourself, there are several obstacles every year for the NGO participation in the event. The obstacles range from getting to New York, to have access to certain events, to have the possibility of virtual participation. All these issues are also discussed this year. In terms of the virtual participation, we see that the United Nations have fully returned to in-person meetings. The General Assembly was fully in person this September. Nevertheless, we see how the participation of the NGO community fulfills the aims of what the Commission is actually doing. That we thought hard and decided that we will try to have some virtual participation elements also this year. As you know, the session, the official events will be streamed, and that's a possibility to join the meetings, to follow the meetings of the session. Nevertheless, there is a different level of involvement possible, and that is only possible if there is a possibility for a virtual participation which is more active. More active means that if an NGO is speaking at the opening ceremony, or if the NGOs are participating in the general discussion or in some expert panels, that there would be a possibility to deliver the statement or participate in the dialogue also virtually. We are very carefully looking into the possibilities, how we could organize it, because when it is organized in a hybrid way, there are some technical restrictions immediately and timing restrictions, but the Bureau is working hard and carefully thinking how we still can overcome all technical or all timing issues so that the NGO participation can happen if the NGO cannot come to New York. Also to have a better understanding of NGO experiences. During the session, for the first time, the Bureau has invited the NGO CSW to join us in a meeting so we can sit at one table and discuss all the issues that the NGO CSW faces and see how together we could overcome them. And I think that's all at the moment. For me, I will stay till the end so I can hear your questions, time permitting. And thank you for the invitation, and thank you for all collaboration over these years that I have been in the Bureau. And I'm looking forward to the next session, and I hope that with your help it will be fruitful, that you will send all your recommendations for the main theme, for the agreed conclusions, so we have your input, and that it will be a good and fruitful experience for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maris, for your very calm and supportive presence, for your support of the work that we do, for the update that you've given. We're very appreciative of your efforts to involve civil society in the work of the CSW. It's good to know that it looks like there will be virtual possibilities to provide input. And thank you so much for volunteering to stay on for the Q&A, as I know many people attending will have questions for you. We're now going to proceed, Ivy and myself, to give you some background information for those of you who are newbies on the CSW, and then Ivy will cover NGO CSW. So the UN Commission on the Status of Women is the principal intergovernmental body exclusively dedicated to the promotion of gender equality and the empowerment of women. It's a functional commission of ECOSOC, the UN Economic and Social Council, and it was established in 1946. It meets every year in session and produces a written outcome document. UN Women is its secretariat. The commission itself is composed of 45 member states elected by ECOSOC with geographical representation. So if we were to go over some of the achievements of the CSW is active in promoting the rights of women and girls and combating gender-based discrimination. From the very beginning, the CSW successfully argued against references to men as a synonym for humanity in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and succeeded in introducing new, more inclusive language. Out of CSW emerged the legally binding Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW, in 1979, and I see we have a representative here for Cities for CEDAW. The CSW also focused on women's needs in international development and the advancement and empowerment of women and girls in all their diversity. Here you see a timeline that will help you appreciate the many achievements of the CSW over time. The CSW was instrumental in designating 1972 as International Women's Year. in holding world conferences for women, and in designating 1976 to 1985 as the UN Decade for Women. And it was in this period that NGO CSW New York and the other NGO CSWs, Geneva and Vienna, were created. UN agencies were established to further women's cause, such as UNIFEM, which some of you may remember, and INSTRA, the International Research and Training Institute for the Advancement of Women. In the late 1980s, the CSW brought violence against women to the forefront, resulting in the Declaration on the Elimination of Violence Against Women, adopted by the General Assembly in 1993.
So what happened in 1995 in Beijing?
This was a key year. I was a new mother and didn't go to Beijing, but the commission served as the preparatory body for the 1995 Fourth World Conference on Women, which adopted the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, one of the most important documents that is alluded to in all of our work. After the conference, the commission was mandated by the General Assembly to play a central role in monitoring the implementation of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action and advising ECOSOC accordingly. As called for in the Platform for Action, an additional UN office for the promotion of gender equality was established, OSAGI, the Office on the Special Advisor on Gender Issues and the Advancement of Women.
So what is UN Women and how did they come about?
In 2010, and many of us remember that year, DAW, INSTRA, OSAGI, and UNIFEM merged to become UN Women, now the Secretariat for the Commission on the Status of Women. This was achieved with a great deal of advocacy for civil society. You can read more about the history of the CSW in the chat.
Sorry, I'm trying to find my unmute. When does the CSW session actually take place and how does it focus its work?
Okay, the CSW meets every year at UN headquarters in New York for 2 weeks, and that usually coincides with International Women's Day, which is March 8th. The CSW focuses on one priority theme, which is framed by the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action and aligned with the UN Sustainable Development Goals now, in particular Goal 5, gender equality. It also evaluates progress in implementing agreed conclusions from previous sessions as a review theme. These two themes change every year, priority theme and review theme. So this year's priority theme focuses on poverty and financing with a gender perspective. We all know that feminization of poverty is not only a reality around the globe, but that in certain parts of the globe, women and girls are in extreme poverty. It's also true that SDG 5 and SDG 1 are not on track, and that to achieve gender equality, a close look at global, national, and local institutions is necessary. If your NGO is working towards economic, social, or legal justice for women, this is the year to showcase what you do. And we'll now have a pop quiz so far, just to make sure you're awake and paying attention. So there will be a poll, but the question is, the priority theme of the CSW is determined by NGO CSW New York. True or false? Pop quiz number 2 is the 2024 review theme comes from the agreed conclusions of the 63rd CSW session. True or false? Take a moment to fill out the pop quiz. And that's what happens when you put a teacher in charge.
We're getting lots of answers. I'll wait maybe another minute for everyone to answer.
Next time we do this, we'll have to have prizes.
All right, looks like it's slowing down. So I will share the results All right. So
right.
for number one, we have 78% said false, 22% said true.
Okay, that's
And then
good.
for
Most are
number
correct.
two,
The answer is
Yeah.
false.
yeah. And then for number two, we have 75% true, 25% false.
Yes, and the correct answer is true. The review theme this year comes from CSW 63.
All right, so I will stop sharing.
Okay, we're doing well. Ivy, pop me
But
another
the tricky
question.
one, Rosemary.
A little bit tricky, but we have to make
Not
sure people
me.
are staying attention.
Yes,
Paying
thanks.
attention. So the CSW outcome document.
Yes, how is it produced?
Okay. Before the CSW session starts, a zero draft, that's what it's called, is produced by member states. As the name indicates, it's the first draft of what will eventually become the main outcome document, which is called agreed conclusions. Negotiations on this document start before the CSW session and concludes sometimes into the wee hours at the end of the session. And we often have NGO CSW members waiting outside the deliberations to see when and how that final document will be produced. Here in the chat is the zero draft from last year's CSW 67. You'll see that these documents start with preambular paragraphs, sometimes called PPs, which cite precedent and general principles, and proceeds on page 9, you'll see, to operational paragraphs, sometimes called OPs, which are the meat, right? Refer to recommended actions. Every word in the agreed conclusions is important and meaningful and can generate potentially hours of deliberations. So it is this document that all of us look ultimately to influence in one way or another from civil society.
Thank you. So what does UN Women do?
Okay, UN Women supports all the aspects of the Commission's work as its secretariat, which means that it administers and coordinates the activities of the CSW. Before the CSW, it holds an expert group meeting, and it's already held it for CSW 68. We should be getting the papers and results from it very soon. It facilitates the UN involvement of NGOs with ECOSOC consultative status with the CSW session. It supports member states as they set global standards for gender equality, and it works with governments and civil society generally to design laws, policies, programs, and services needed to ensure that those standards are effectively implemented. UN Women also conducts and commissions research. It provides technical assistance to member states. It delivers programs. It advocates for policies. And Johannes Lang will tell us a bit more about UN Women in a bit. And in the link, you will find a link to UN Women.
Yes, and actually, I think it's yesterday or so, the expert group papers have gone live on their website. So if you do look on that link, you should see the papers.
Okay, and now Ivy will proceed to talk about NGO CSW.
Yes.
Different from
So there
CSW.
were what 22% or so of you that thought that actually the committee establishes the priority theme. Wow, I wonder how revolutionary that would be if we could. I think Maris is listening. But anyway, so there is a difference between the official UN CSW and the NGO CSW, and we apologize that we share acronyms because actually that really does cause some confusion. CSW, the UN CSW is the commission. So that's what the C stands for with CSW. The CSW for the committee, it's a committee, not a commission. So the NGO committee on the status of women. So that's the only indication that these two are very different. But looking at the acronyms, you could easily confuse them. But I think NGO in front of it also indicates something different, which means it's a civil society run committee. So we are gathering civil society to the UN CSW. We're trying to bring the voices of people to the UN. and outside of the UN headquarters. And we have a parallel gathering that happens right outside the UN. Since, as you know, there is definitely a capacity limitation within the UN premises, and there are many of you that come out to participate at the CSW every year. So that whole forum, we call that the NGO CSW Forum, and we always put that, you know, there's a number next to the CSW, that's the session number. So right now in March, it's going to be the 68th session. So that's why we say NGO CSW 68 Forum. And that forum is, again, it's organized by the committee. Rosemary shared a little bit, you know, we are serving as part of that on the executive committee, and it's volunteer based. And we host virtual and in-person parallel events. As of 2020, our world was totally transformed. I think we can say humanity's life was fully transformed. And the committee and the forum, everything has moved onto a virtual platform. We want to continue to preserve that virtual space so that we can be as inclusive as possible for the foreseeable future, or as long as Pamela and I are the co-chairs. We want to ensure that there is a virtual aspect, because we want to continue to engage those in person and those who cannot make it to New York. And so there will be parallel events and other events and activities held there. There'll be recommendations prepared by civil society to include in the outcome document. So basically input into the zero draft. And the CSW is the official commission. And I think, Rosemary, you were going to ask me questions, and I keep going on and on. You know, I'm sorry, I'm an off-script kind of girl. I don't know. I'm sorry.
You're doing perfect. You're doing perfect.
I'm just
So
going on
made,
and on. Sorry.
my confusion was, what's a parallel event and what's a side event? What's the difference between those two?
Okay, good question. Very good question. We get it all the time. And so the side event is sponsored by member states, and those are held within the UN headquarters, within the UN buildings. And the parallel events are held outside, and it's hosted by it's part of the forum. It's hosted by individual NGOs or groups of NGOs. They're not organized by, and I like to clarify that too. The committee is creating a space for NGOs to hold their events. We don't hold the 700 plus events. We don't organize all those 700 plus events. We're creating the spaces for NGOs to, you know, rent that venue space and you know, hold their own events. So yeah, those are parallel events, but side is fully part of the official commission events at the UN.
So NGOs can belong to NGO CSW, but they can't belong to the CSW.
Correct, correct. So Maris, representing Latvia, is a part of the commission's bureau. There are 5 bureau members, and they are all member states. So that's an intergovernmental space, and the UN system supports that. But civil society informs and tries to be engaged as much as possible in what they do, but we're not part of CSW.
So what's the role of CSW in the outcome document as opposed to NGO CSW?
The outcome, huh?
The outcome document, the agreed conclusions. Who writes that?
Yes, so that is, again, an intergovernmental process. So that is handled by the member states. They negotiate on it. And currently, civil society is not part of the negotiations at all. We actually cannot even be in the room to observe that process. That is strictly closed for member states and given UN staff, you know, particular staff that are allowed to be in there. Of course, there are NGO representatives that belong to national delegations. They would be in the space as well, but that would be in their national kind of capacity. They were invited by the governments, their national governments, to be a part of the delegation to be there. But all in all, we couldn't just, you know, sit in and watch the negotiation process. But that was just negotiations the rest of the 2 weeks of the commission, you know, the other events and, you know, the interactive dialogues, all of that we can be a part of. And again, there is a link in UN Women's website about NGO engagement. So there are other ways that we can be a part of the commission, like giving also oral statements during the sessions. So, and Maris was kind of mentioning that the Bureau also is trying to think of like the emerging themes and other aspects to include into their program of the 2 weeks. So I would really be watching out for that and see, yeah, if you can get a seat.
Okay. Fantastic.
So did we cover it?
I think we did.
Okay, good. So what's next?
I believe Johannes is here.
Oh, that's right. So I think Johannes Lang, who should be here. So we've mentioned UN Women quite a lot, and we have our favorite person from the Civil Society Division who supports us day and night. And I literally say day and night because one day I had a frantic email to him at around midnight, and I couldn't believe he responded to me in like a second. And so I really appreciate all the hard work that you do behind the scenes. I know that you're working so hard with the whole UN system to support us. So I'll give you the mic to share more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ivy, and thank you for your kind words. It really is a team effort. We are a very small team in UN Women in the Civil Society Division, but we really appreciate also the hard work that you and all civil society is putting in for the session. And yeah, we just are very happy to be collaborating with you on CSW. And warm greetings to all participants, and thank you for inviting me to talk a bit, maybe a little bit more on UN Women's role in CSW. I hope you can hear me well,
yes,
so
it's clear.
Great, thanks. So with many thanks to Rosemary and you, Ivy, you already heard a lot about UN Women's role in CSW, and you are aware that CSW is an ECOSOC functional commission. And as such, CSW official meetings are attended by representatives of member states and observers, by representatives of ECOSOC accredited NGOs, and by representatives of UN agencies. Also, as you may know, CSW is the second largest convening at UNHQ New York after the UNGA. Thanks to the vibrant and critically important participation of many civil society participants from all over the world. So as you already mentioned, the CSW Bureau, which consists of 5 elected member states, steers the preparation for the annual CSW sessions and also plays the critical role in ensuring the successful outcome of the session. So there's the CSW Bureau, and on the CSW website, if you haven't seen it yet, you will see exactly who is part of the CSW Bureau. And then there are, in fact, 2 secretariats that support the CSW Bureau in achieving a successful outcome and a successful running of the session. So on one hand, there's the UN Secretariat, which functions as the technical secretariat for the session, ensuring conference facilities, interpretation, accessibility services for participants with disabilities, and the publishing of official documents, among other tasks. And then there is the substantive CSW Secretariat, and that's where UN Women comes in. As the substantive secretariat, we in UN Women support all aspects of the Commission's substantive work, such as convening an expert group meeting prior to the session, as you have pointed out, thanks so much for that, drafting the SG's report, the Secretary General's report, which the recommendations for the agreed conclusions will be based on, and supporting in particular the participation of representatives from ECOSOC accredited NGOs in official meetings of the session, including NGO registration to attend the session, as mentioned by you, Ivy, written and oral statements, and also interventions from ECOSOC accredited NGOs in the interactive dialogues. And in that sense, I maybe would like to briefly highlight two of these processes today. And thank you for already mentioning one of them, the expert group meeting on the CSW68 priority theme. The EGM, how we call it, the expert group meeting, took place recently, and the expert papers and background papers have just been posted now on the CSW website. And we would like you to read, if you can, through these papers, because they outline the key issues and recommendations on the priority theme. Also, the outcomes of that expert group meetings form an important knowledge base for the forthcoming Secretary General's report on the CSW priority theme. And I will also post the links into the chat in a moment. But I think these expert group papers and background papers, observer papers that you will find may be very helpful in your work, also in your advocacy work and in your preparations for the sessions. Not all documents have been posted yet. A few are still under review or being finalized, including some expert papers and also the report that summarizes the whole session. So that will come in the next few days. And we will let you know as soon as they are all online. But most of them are already there, and we would encourage you to go to that webpage. And thank you so much, Devon, for posting that in the chat already. And then in terms of CSW registration for ECOSOC accredited NGOs, I'd like to highlight that each ECOSOC accredited organization may register up to 20 representatives. And we would ask representatives of ECOSOC accredited NGOs to please register early if you can, and to ensure that the conference focal point in your organization approves your registration prior to the deadline of 26 January 2024. So like other functional commissions, we are using the UN registration system Indico for registration to the official session by ECOSOC accredited organizations. And as you know, in Indico, representatives register individually, and then the focal point of your organization will actually go into Indico and approve up to 20 representatives. And once this approval happens, the representative, the registered and approved representative will receive an automatic email with a PDF attachment confirming that basically that person is registered. And yeah, so that we would ask to please complete that before the deadline of 26 January, because then we have to extract the data, hand them over to UN partners to put them into the access system. So that would be an important timeline. And also for any questions concerning CSW registration for ECOSOC accredited organizations, please do send an email to csw@unwomen.org, and we'll paste that email address in the chat as well. And then I think lastly, I would also like to highlight that UN Women closely collaborates with NGO CSW to also support informal spaces at or in parallel to the session, such as the civil society morning briefings. And I'm sure that you will hear more about the civil society engagement opportunities in the time to come. So thank you so much for having me, and I hope this information was helpful. And again, any questions concerning registration or other engagement opportunities, please send an email to csw@unwomen.org, or feel free, of course, to browse our website, which will be updated as we go closer to the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Johannes, so much for that. And it will definitely, yes, keep our eyes peeled for all the updates on the UN Women website and keep them updated on the briefings. It's very exciting because we're really planning for more briefings. That this is a sneak peek, but hasn't been officially announced, but we definitely want to have more morning briefings at the UN headquarters. Thankfully, with UN Women's partnership, we'll be able to do that with the Bureau's participation, hopefully, as well. And And so look out for a lot more of those briefings. And we have a pop quiz coming up. And that's what I'm supposed to announce. I do see hands and I see the chat. I think we're going to have questions a little bit later, right, Rosemary? So I won't address any of that right now. We'll do the pop quiz. It says CSW site events are organized by member states and UN agencies in collaboration with ECOSOC accredited civil society organizations and held on UN premises. Is this true or false? And I see the second one is also there already too.
Yes.
Parallel events are organized by civil society organizations and held outside UN premises. So.
All right, you should all see the poll, and I see lots of people are answering. So I'll just give it another 30 seconds or so for everyone to add their answers. All right, answers are slowing down, so I will share the results. Okay, you should all see the results. So for question number 1, CSW side events are organized by member states and UN agencies in collaboration with ECOSOC accredited civil society organizations, and they're held on the UN premises. So 86% said true, 14% said false, and the answer is true. And the second question, parallel events are organized by civil society organizations and held outside UN premises. And 93% said true, 7% said false, and the answer is true. Okay, I'll stop sharing, and I believe I am announcing the next speaker. So we have Huri Gurulakian, who is the past chair of NGO CSW New York and is our current advocacy consultant, and she's also the producer of the NGO CSW Forum. So I will hand it over to Huri to walk us through the forum and the activities and all of that.
Thank you, Devin. Thank you, everyone who has contributed so far, and thank you for the participants. It's so active in the chat. I'm like trying to respond to everything. I see that we're a little bit behind in schedule, so I'm going to try to go as quickly as I can and as comprehensive as I can to explain what we're doing with the forum this year. Just a little background, I've been helping to organize the forum for 12 years now with 2 other chairs, and then I became the chair, and now I am so happy to be working with Ivy and Pamela, who are doing an amazing job as co-chairs. So just to let you know that the parallel events started out years ago with only a couple of, I would say a handful, 50, 70, 100 maybe. And over the years, the demand of global civil society wanting to be represented, wanting to gather while CSW proper was happening has grown. And of course, as Ivy mentioned before, during COVID, when we went virtual, it quadrupled. So here we are now back to pre-COVID days, and we're trying to do our best to offer as much space as possible for the demands that we will be getting. We have no idea how many demands we will have this year because, you know, applications are still open. But we did go back to pre-COVID locations. We have the church center, which was the original building where our office is also, and we get 4 or 5 rooms there. We are so grateful that Salvation Army partners with us, and they have 2 amazing rooms, which is 10-minute walk to north. And then some of you who have been around also know that we have the Armenian Cultural Center, which we call ACC. Get used to that. I know lots of acronyms with UN, so we jump on that. And the Armenian Cultural Center is 10-minute walk south of the church center, which is across the street from UN. This is something that I know people always complain about, that we don't have enough room, we don't have rooms that are closer to the UN, but I can tell you that we have always done our best to find rooms that are affordable. That's the most important piece for us, because we can rent out hotel rooms and each room will probably cost an organization thousands of dollars to book for a 90-minute session. There's going to be, I think, one of the other things that we changed this year is we heard from our participants that there were way too many parallel events and too many competition. So we're going to do our best to address those questions. For example, parallel events are going to go from 8:30 to 6 p.m. so that we're not exhausted. Usually it was 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and it was just too much. We're also going to create space that's going to be a healing and community space, as you can see on the slide as well. That's going to be in the ACC Center, where there's going to be 2 other parallel event rooms at the same time. And in that space, we're actually creating a lot of activities so that people can just hang out there, take a break. And as you can see, we're bringing back in-person artisan fair this year. So we're all excited. And that's going to be 3 full days, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And the healing community space will be Monday and Friday in that same space. We're also adding more civil society briefings, again, going back to the pre-COVID. So there will be at least 8 civil society briefings in the mornings. That's in collaboration with UN Women, and it will happen in the United Nations, we hope. We're also working on orientation sessions that we've done before too, especially when we were all virtual. You will receive emails with notifications. Please sign up. Orientation to learn how to manage our virtual platform, which you will hear about in a minute. We're creating lots of networking spaces, including a reception, which if you were here last year, we were so happy to collaborate with UN Foundation, and they gave us a gorgeous space that we're hoping to get back into again. We're also working on conversation circles and regional caucuses. Once we confirm location, all of those announcements will go out. We're going to try our best to make them hybrid, but I would probably gear towards making it either virtual or in person, because we've noticed that hybrid has become pretty difficult to manage. The other, last but not least, I also wanted to mention, we're doing exhibit booths, which will be both virtual and in person. You'll hear about the virtual in a minute for the platform, but in person will be at the ACC Center, where all the activities are happening. So in some ways, the ACC will be the activity hub along with parallel events. Salvation Army is usually the quietest place because there's only 2 rooms there, but they're beautiful rooms and people really enjoy going and concentrating on parallel events. And of course, the church center is always the busiest. It's always a crowd. And there's honestly, I can't do anything about it. There's not a place that you can rest or do anything, but it's important to have those parallel events and attend them. I'm going to stop here because there's so many more slides to go through, and I will answer questions in the chat. Remember, everything I said will be shared with you via email, informational, as we organize them and move forward. Thank you, and I will give the floor back to Devin.
Thanks, Hootie. Let me just spotlight myself. Okay, so we have a new and improved virtual portal this year. This year we're using VFairs. So we are still in the process of building it out and getting it all set for y'all, but we hope to have registration and access to the portal open in December, and we will most definitely keep you updated on that. We will send an email to our mailing list and post on our website and social media once registration is open and once you can access that portal. So you can start exploring, getting familiar with it, so you don't have to waste your time on that during the actual forum. So some of the highlights of the portal is the registration is super easy. You just fill in some questions and then it automatically gives you a link and you can jump right into the portal to start exploring. Parallel events will be listed on the portal. So this includes both in-person and virtual. And this really goes for all of our events and activities as well. So even the events that NGO CSW itself is hosting, for example, conversation circles or regional caucuses, which are hosted by our sister NGO CSWs around the world. So everything will be on this portal, the schedule, everything you need to know. We'll also have virtual exhibit booths and handbook ad sponsors like we've had in the past. So like Hudi mentioned, we're gonna have the exhibit hall in person, but we're also gonna have a virtual one as well. And then finally, we will have lots of resources on the portal for you. In the next few months, we're going to be creating a ton of resources, everything you need, so that you have everything you need for if you're a parallel event organizer, if you're an exhibitor, if you're a handbook ad sponsor, if you're just a participant. So we'll be sending FAQs and tutorial videos, and we'll also be having training events in January or February. So keep an eye out for updates about that as well. And all of those resources will be available to you on the portal. So if you ever have a question or anything like that, you can just hop on over to that section and find the information you need. And I think that's it from me. So I will pass it over to Rosa from our advocacy and research group, and she's going to tell you a little bit about that.
Thank you so much, Devin. Hello, colleagues. Great to see so many of you still on. A lot of information. I'm going to be brief. I'm going to talk to you about our advocacy plans and the Advocacy and Research Group, ARG, what we're doing. The advocacy group is a working group of the NGO CSW, which is comprised of some constituency members of the NGO CSW, people who have worked on the ARG previously. We began our work in August in order to focus on advocacy points of the primary and sub-theme of the CSW. And this is going to be combined with advocacy an advocacy training that is set for January. So I'm going to just give you highlights, but please know that in terms of advocacy, more information is to follow. But we know that this is a very important aspect, and we wanted to ensure that you are informed about what we're doing. So the Advocacy and Research Group, if you can just go back to the, thank you. Mainly what we do is we develop an advocacy plan for this specific CSW. As you know, you've been hearing it on poverty and financing institutions in brief. And on the sub-theme, which is on social protection. So what we do is we research these areas and we develop a set of priority areas for recommendations. And these priority areas have been developed through a process that includes discussing with the NGO CSW Executive Committee and partners And then if some of you may recall, we sent a questionnaire to our 45,000 plus listserv so that you were able to vote. And I will go over these in the next slide. But also just to say these recommendations are intersectional, cross-cutting in approach to ensure that we cover something's important to our constituencies, such as gender-based violence, health, LGBTQ issues, issues of bullying and violence online. We developed these recommendations based on these priorities, and we present them to the members of the Bureau, to the 45 members of the Commission on the Status of Women, to all 193 member states, to member states that we are meeting with from now until March. We're meeting with different delegations, and we also provide them to UN Women. And then we have these for you all to look at, to use. We'll be pinning them on our website for you to use at the global, national, local level, and of course at the CSW. These briefs are using evidence-based resources and information, so we will have information on where you can go for more information. And of course, we want information that is succinct, efficient to use, digestible for the representatives of the CSW who are working, both delegates and our constituencies. So let's take a look at the 5 recommendations. As I mentioned, next slide, please. The process. The top 5 are social justice and poverty. And this incorporates the primary thing and the sub thing. Education and poverty, an important issue that came up with as for our constituency, including digital literacy and technology, the theme of last year's CSW. Intersection of women's poverty and climate change, including water insecurity, food insecurity, the impacts of climate change on women's poverty. Gender bias and economic policy, based primarily on the priority theme and its relation to macroeconomic policy. And we wanted to look at it through an anti-colonial feminist perspective of the current macroeconomic system, including tax, trade, and the 5th priority area, debt crisis and its impact on women. And this is very much related to issues of financing for development. We have a 6th recommendation, and that is going to be developed by the youth. It's going to be focused on youth priorities, looking at an intersectional approach. So other top themes are also incorporated into these main themes as mentioned. So if there are any questions, I'll check the chat. Please know that in January, we will have an advocacy training. We will prepare these recommendations fully and provide them to you. And last, I just want to thank the members of the ARG. I see some of them here. Thank you for all your great work, and my co-chair, Rahel Beagle, who was not able to attend today's session. So thank you so much, and back over to you, Rosemary.
Okay, and next on the agenda, we have Devin talking about the YLYP's activities and membership.
Thanks. So, let me try. Okay. So the youth leaders and young professionals, if you don't already know, is our youth engagement program at NGO CSW New York. So the YLYPs are a community of youth who are passionate about gender equality and also looking to engage more in the UN. So some of the highlights are, learning about involvement in the UN, the different youth processes that happen in the UN and how you can connect with them, and also how we can try to make them all a little bit more streamlined. A big thing is preparing for the CSW and the CSW Forum. So we have a youth preparation series each year of about 7 to 8 events leading up to the CSW. And it includes all kinds of events that will hopefully really prepare you to have a good, well-rounded experience at the CSW. So we have some kind of educational thematic panels. We have advocacy trainings, we have like professional development events. So all of those things to really make sure that you're ready to go into the CSW and have an effective and a meaningful experience there. And last but not least, it's a community of youth who are, you know, like-minded and sharing the same passions about gender equality and learning from each other. Yeah, so I'll put in the chat the link to the YLYPs, and definitely keep an eye out for updates from us about that. And also just to flag the age. So we consider youth up until 40 years old at NGO CSW, but also we really, you know, value the intergenerational approach and aspect. So even if you're not youth and you want to attend like our youth preparation series, that's totally welcome. Yeah. So I will pass it to, I think, Rosemary, and I think we're going into Q&A.
Yes, we're going into Q&A. Thank you, Devin. That's a very good overview. We'd now like people to formulate questions for us. We're sure you have a lot of questions. We've been answering them in the chat, but if you'd like to raise your hand, we're happy to answer them live. Daniela?
Thank you very much, and congratulations for a very successful thus far event. I think I may stand corrected on this point, but I would like to have some clarification from Maris, if he's still here and if possible, with respect to the next negotiations for the CSW themes. Will our home government ask for our input this cycle, or we submit collective input to NGO CSW New York? Again, if I misunderstood, I stand corrected. Usually our home government, they send us, they ask for input. And one more point of clarification, actually is more of a question. When we will be negotiating the agreed conclusion, how much of the text in terms of paragraphs are going to be blocked again, or if this is envisaged to happen? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniela. I believe Maris had to go. I think I saw it in the chat, so that he's not here. Does anybody else want to answer? Pam or Ivy or Rosa, from past experience, any insight here for Daniela?
I think we should take her question and pass it to Maris, and then be able to respond at a later date. I don't think we're equipped to answer.
Okay, Daniela, we will pass your question to Maris.
And
Thank you.
Daniela, please put your email in the chat so we can get back to you.
Yes, I will. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Okay, other questions? If you could raise your hand.
Rosemary, I think you've done a wonderful job today. There are a few questions.
Baptism by fire. I think maybe we need more quizzes.
I see two hands.
Okay, Bert?
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon. I have a question for the parallel events. Will there be some equipment foreseen to the NGO to make a hybrid event? How do we get the equipment? Because last year there was a lot of problems with the equipment at the church. So this year, my question is, would it be possible there is something foreseen, or do we have, or can we rent it something?
I'm going to jump right in, Bertha, and I'm with you on that because I can't even begin to tell you how difficult it was for us to accommodate. And we tried our best, as you know, the team was running around on each floor. So yes, this year, as the producer or whatever my title is with the parallel events, we're doing our best and working with each venue to upgrade and improve and bring actually more volunteers who can help each organization. Having said that, my own personal recommendation would be is to, if you're going to do hybrid, choose virtual. Because honestly, you really get more out of it. People are engaging better if everybody is on the same page rather than going back and forth. Again, I'm not making decisions for all of you. If you want to go ahead and try the hybrid, we're going to do our best to deliver better equipment and better assistance. Yeah, I think that's the best I can say because we're literally working with each venue and even willing to spend some money that we can hopefully get donated so that we can improve the equipment.
Thank you very much, Huri.
Thank you, Huri. Frederica?
Thanks. I don't actually have a question myself. I just wanted to direct to a question in the chat from Liv that I thought was very interesting and well, mirrors also what I was wondering. So they say they attended CSW last year, but didn't understand where does the negotiation around the agreed conclusions happen and how can we have a role in it? So is there a way to contribute to the advocacy at this moment, or can you give us some guidance on how we can best have an impact to that? Yeah, I would find that super useful to hear as well.
I'll defer to one of my more experienced colleagues in this area, but I just wanted to kind of plug our advocacy toolkit, which does have a lot of good information about advocating, you know, not only at CSW specifically, but also just kind of how the UN works. We are updating it for CSW68, but last year's advocacy toolkit also has you know, just a lot of information that's applicable to, you know, any year. So I'll put that in the chat. Yeah, just wanted to mention that.
I put it.
Oh, okay, cool.
That's helpful. Rosa, did you want to?
Yeah, Frederica. I want to address some of the questions in the chat regarding the advocacy and research group. These are the priority areas that we will be advocating for. And as mentioned, what is going to be done now is we're going to be developing them fully, providing them to UN Women. As you know, UN Women, you heard, had an expert group meeting. They developed their priority areas. They have expert papers on the theme. Their input from us will also go into what they're doing to provide input into the Secretary General's report, which will outline basically the draft outcome. So the best line right now in what we're hearing from meeting with member states is that they are developing their positions, their priority areas for the CSW priority theme right now. Right now, it's a critical time to go to your government at the national level, work that so that your priorities, maybe you have some expert papers that you want to recommend. I would say make a cover sheet, make it succinct. What are your priority areas? You can use the guideline that we provide in terms of R5 and cross-cutting issues, and provide that to your leaders in country, because they are developing those plans now. They want our information as well. So that is the best route right now. People that you know in country, and I don't know, maybe, I think you're in the UK or in Europe. I know they're developing their plans right now, and they want input. They want to hear from civil society. So send to them, and then I would then send to UN Women, and then we're going to be focusing on the 45 member states of the Commission on the Status of Women, including the Bureau members. So you will hear more in terms of advocacy as time goes on, but in terms of what you can do, I would suggest that. And just one more thing, because people are interested in joining the ARG for next year, we will be developing, it is too late for now, but for next year, we will be developing a process for new members. So we haven't even decided that, so I can't say anything more than that, but just that I see that there's interest in the chat. Thank you.
Super. Hope that answers your question. Dr. Ife Ofong?
Yeah, thank you so much, Rosemary. Let me start by commending the NGO CSW, for the wonderful work that you're doing. I'm so excited that all this hard work, that you guys have put in is actually yielding some level of success. But as somebody who has been following the CSW for many years now, I am a little bit worried, because if we look back to before the UN Women came on board, there were so many activities. There was the 50-50 campaign. I was part of that, the GEAR campaign, and all the protests and all the marches, which we have done in front of the UN, from First Avenue to Second Avenue and all that. So what am I trying to say? On that night, I remember that day very clearly, when the UN Women was, do I use the word inaugurated or, whatever, at the UN building. We civil society groups, we were there from morning till 9 p.m. because, we had a lot of expectations. We really wanted the UN Women, we thought that the word of every woman in the world would turn around with the creation of UN Women. Yes, UN Women has been working hard, and I may not understand what they are going through. But as somebody, coming from the global south and from Africa, to be precise, I expected that things, would shift for the better, for the average rural woman, for the average rural girl, So every year, this is my 23rd year of coming to the UN. Every year, we all run around to see what the resolution looks like, what are the negotiations, what have the member states agreed on? But are we really asking ourselves, all the agreed resolutions, what is the impact on the life?
Dr. Ofong, we do have limited time, so I'm sorry.
Yes. Sorry.
Your question is, what's the impact?
What am I saying? I think it's time for NGO CSW to begin to think about monitoring and evaluating these resolutions, their impact on the woman, on the girl, at the grassroots.
Thank you. That's an excellent suggestion.
No, I'm done. Thank you.
Does anybody want to address that?
Do you mind if I just jump in for 30 seconds? Because this has been such an important part of everything we've been doing for the last 10, 12 years. As you know, we've also established regional representation, because the only way what we do will matter is what you all bring back to your national and regional levels. We've tried the best that we can to engage and do even trainings And it's really difficult. I mean, that's the only thing I'm going to say. But I think the solution is in the regions, at the national level. So those of you who are coming to to our forum, our job is organizing the forum, but we took that very seriously. I said, why are we getting so exhausted organizing forum when nothing is changing on the ground? And I'm afraid I'm kind of turning the tables back on you to say that we're all in this together. We have to ask you all to bring the results. It's not just having a parallel event. What did you learn? What did you gain to bring it back to your national and regional level? And the one thing I want to say earlier, if you guys don't mind, 10 seconds, people were asking about translation, and you all know we have no capacity and financing to translate or have interpretation during these sessions. But I beg you all to bring this information. And if you have the capacity, if you speak the two languages, bring this information to your group who doesn't speak English and translate them for them. We're all in this together. Thanks, Rosemary.
Rosemary, I'd like to jump in.
Sure.
In response to Dr. Ithi's important question, because I think that's the same question that we're all asking ourselves about what is the result? Why aren't we staying at the negotiations until the crack of dawn and then it ends there? So what we're trying to do is build a mechanism of sorts to help people understand how to carry CSW forward from the 22nd of March on into their countries for implementation. And we are, with Devin and the interns overview, we are modifying the advocacy toolkit to include a section on implementation so that when people go back, they know what to do, they know what to look for, because the real monitoring of the impact happens, as Hudi said, back at home.
Thank you. And thank you for raising this really important issue. Bina Palakal?
Hi, thank you very much. And thanks very much for all the information that you've given, really helpful. Just quickly, there's always, from the Global South, we always have problems with visas. And, we never get dates. It's 3-4 months before we get a date. So is there any way that, we can speed up that process for people who still need to get visas to come in March? Thanks.
Go ahead, Devin.
Jump in. One, I just want to flag, because we have gotten some questions about this already. So NGO CSW does provide visa invitation letters to those who request them, as long as you are registered for the forum. So unfortunately, we can't provide invitation letters before registration for the forum opens. However, if you are registering for the UN CSW, I do believe that you automatically get a visa support letter. And I'm pretty sure that UN Women has recommended that those who are attending the UN CSW use the C1 visa application, which is for UN related events specifically, and that is supposed to help. So just wanted to flag that because I have seen that, but I'll defer to anyone else who has any updates.
Thank you, Devin. I guess we have time for one last question. Clara? Clara, I see your hand raised. If you want to unmute, you'd be our last question.
Hello?
Yes?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes, I'm really, really happy about the pieces of information. Very, very, very important for us. But one thing, the virtual parallel events, I would think we should need more information. It's a bit novel. apart from, so we'll need more information in terms of things like time allocation. And I think this probably will be worked out as the planning goes on. You could now contact us, but if you have any reaction to that right away, I'll be too glad to have it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Virtual events.
Devin, do you want me to jump in, or you want anybody?
Yeah, sure.
All right, so the parallel events, the virtual parallel events applications are also open. And the chances of people having a spot on our platform are very high, because we have a very strong, powerful platform that will allow for many, many virtual events. You get to choose what time and when you want to have your event. And with this virtual platform, actually, Devin is better than me with the technical part, but we're making sure that the organizers can have access to the back end to update their speakers. So this is one of the reasons why we like this virtual platform, because organizers of virtual parallel events will have access to their own events to update information. I hope that answered your question, but there's plenty of opportunity to have a virtual parallel event, and I truly encourage, many to include that, to apply. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So, Huri, just to clarify, they can take place 24 hours a day for as long as people want?
Yes, the platform, and not for the Pacific, Asia Pacific, and that kind of, If their audience is at 4 a.m., they should do it at 4 a.m.
And we were assured that the company, the virtual platform, will also staff, like they'll have 24-hour support. And hopefully, right, Devin, that was what they were promising us. So they have also people all around the globe that work for them, which was very reassuring for us. So you really do have the freedom to hold an event when you want.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
just more on that point, Ivy. If you are hosting a virtual event, you are responsible for using your own platform. So you will have to use your own Zoom or Google Meet, etc. So while there will be 24-hour support for the portal itself, unfortunately, there won't be too much that we or the portal company can do if you're having trouble on your own Zoom account. So I definitely recommend, one, getting really familiar with whatever platform you're using, or having someone on your team maybe that is tech savvy and can kind of do any troubleshooting if anything comes up. So I just wanted to flag that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. So I guess we're at the end of our time. We want to thank all of you for attending in such wonderful numbers. We want to welcome new people, and thanks to the faithful ones who participate every year. Thanks to everybody who gave information. I don't believe our two guests are still here anymore, but appreciate their taking the time to be with us today. Devin, you said this would be shared on YouTube later today.
And we'll also send a follow-up email with the recording and the slides and all of the links that we shared.
All right, so this is just our first kickoff event. There will be many more events. So we thank you for joining and hope you have a good rest of the day or evening.
Thank you.
Carla, I think we have a group photo, do we not? Carla,
Oh, that's right.
A group photo.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm going to take screenshot right now. Everybody put their camera on if you're comfortable, and smile.
And then you can unmute and say goodbye as usual.
Yes, please.
Adios.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Rosemary. Thanks,
Bye.
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 Adios.
Have a good day.
Bye.